The last text message I had composed remained frozen on my screen. Mom, I closed the deal. It's done. I own it. My thumb hovered over the send button like a hummingbird over a poisoned flower. It was the truth, the earth minus shattering. Life minus altering truth that would finally stop the constant, humming anxiety in my chest. But this wasn't just any week, it was Thanksgiving week. And in my family, Thanksgiving was not a holiday of gratitude, it was an annual performance review. And my mother was the chief auditor. The truth felt too big, too dangerous to deploy on the eve of the family gathering. Better to face the music one last time. Better to endure the expected I-rolls in the barely veiled pity. I minimized the text window, the white screen instantly replaced by the glowing read icon of an incoming call. It was Mom. I sighed, running a hand over the knot in my stomach. Her calls never asked, "How are you?" They asked, "Are you ready to explain yourself?" "Hello, Mom," I answered, forcing a cheerfulness that felt like a cheap Halloween mask. "Darling," her voice chirped. A sound dangerously close to a predator greeting its lunch. "And just confirming you remember the address. It hasn't moved in 20 years, but you know how scattered you can be." Scattered. That was Mom's favorite adjective for me, a polite substitute for failure or directionless. She didn't know I hadn't been scattered for months. I had been strategic. "I remember, Mom. 1422 Elm. I'll be there by noon," I said, leaning back against the sleek, minimalist kitchen counter of my temporary, completely anonymous, and yes, rented apartment. The irony was a bitter taste. "Good. Don't be late. And wear something nice. You know Aunt Carol is bringing her new fiancé. The start minus up disruptor. You should look professional." The emphasis on the last word was a stiletto heel jab deep. "I will," I promised. Ending the call, before I could snap. The last 9 months had been a relentless sprint of secrecy. My creative development job wasn't coloring books, it was running a boutique urban renewal consultancy, a single person. Operating under the radar, the entire operation was designed to acquire and redevelop prime commercial property from neglected, complex estates. The biggest one yet was the former Grant Avenue warehouse, a sprawling, dilapidated behemoth that had killed the ambitions of 3 previous developers. My 1-bedroom downtown flat wasn't just rented, it was chosen for its strategic mediocrity. No one, especially not my status minus, obsessed family, would ever associate that address with a multi-million-dollar deal. Julian Vance, my contact at Sterling Co. Real Estate, had been instrumental in this facade. It's all about minimizing your footprint, Bava. HE deal lectured me countless times over late night encrypted calls. No flashy car, no mortgage, no obvious signs of capital. You need to look like a ghost until the ink is dry. In this market, the moment you show wealth, the vultures circle. And the zoning commission finds 3 years of bureaucratic delay. I remembered the day I sold my modest condo to liquefy my assets. It was terrifying. I was willingly trading security for a high-wire act. Moving into a generic rental where the walls were thin. My mother thought I was simplifying, I was consolidating power. Her perception of my failure was, ironically, the very shield protecting my actual success. I walked into the house, and the scent hit me: sage, roasting turkey, and the faint, metallic ang of judgment. The room was a kaleidoscope of loud, successful relatives, cousins who sold their app for 7 figures, uncles who retired early to consult on global finance. The 32-year-old still renting, was the black sheep perpetually grazing on the lawn of mediocrity. Cousin Mark, the app mogul, cornered me immediately. "Hey Iva, good to see you. Still doing the freelance design thing? Listen, I know a guy who needs a logo, paying peanuts, but it's a gig, right?" Then came Aunt Cal with her fiancé, the disruptor. "Rentals. Darling, they're just feeding the machine. You need to get your skin in the game. That's how real wealth is made." The worst part wasn't the direct jabs, it was the pity. The way my relatives' eyes would glaze over when I spoke. I looked at my mother across the table. She seemed to be waiting for the moment of humiliation, almost eager for it to be over. The turkey was carved. The mashed potatoes were being passed. Aunt Carol leaned across the table. "So, darling," she cooed, focusing on me with the bright, pitying eyes, "your little downtown flat. When do you think you'll take the plunge? You know, establish yourself with some equity?" I took a deep breath, preparing my perfectly rehearsed line actually. "I've been focusing my capital on a large investment that just closed last week." But before the first syllable could escape, my mother, sitting directly opposite me, set down her glass of iced tea. The sound was a sharp, clinical clink. She turned to Aunt Carol, her smile wide and sunny. "Oh, her?" Mom said, her voice carrying effortlessly across the silenced table. "She's still renting." Bless her heart. Still renting. Two simple words. The room didn't erupt, it froze. It was a complete public era sewer of my efforts, my ambition, my very identity. It ray minus opened a deep, old wound, a narrative of never enough. I saw the pity bloom in Aunt Carol's eyes and the judgmental look from Uncle David. But worst of all was the sudden, overwhelming guilt that washed over my mother's face right after the words were out, quickly veiled by the bright, brittle smile. I pushed my chair back. The harsh scrape on the hardwood floor loud enough to draw every eye back to me. "Excuse me," I mumbled, and I fled the dining room toward the relative privacy of the unused sun porch. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking not from emotional distress, but from pure incandescent rage. I called Julian Vance. "Julian," I hissed into the phone, "we have a problem." She just told the entire assembled family that I am, quote, "still renting." Well, technically, you are still renting that shoebox near the financial district, aren't you? What's the big deal? He chuckled. "The big deal," I spat, "is that Uncle David is here. And if they think him financially unstable, the whole family will suddenly find reasons to block my progress. You know the rules of this town: success breeds envy." "Relax," Julian said, his tone shifting from casual to conspiratorial. "It's working exactly as planned. Your rented apartment is the perfect cover. Nobody looks twice at the girl who can't afford a mortgage. It gives you the anonymity you needed to finalize the acquisition. The bigger the spectacle of your poverty, the less they'll look at the zoning permits." "No," I whispered, but she made it sound like a lifetime sentence. "It's a 2-day sentence," Julie uncorrected sharply. "You close on Monday. We are finalizing the last piece of paperwork tonight. Distraction is our greatest asset right now. The bigger the spectacle of your poverty, the less they'll look at the zoning permits. Get back in there. Let them pity you. Let them think you're a mess. Don't blow your cover now." I hung up. I was still the renter, but only for 72 more hours. The shame was gone, replaced by a cold, glittering resolve. I found my mother in the kitchen. "Mom," I said, my voice low and steady, "why would you lie and humiliate me like that?" She flinched, dropping the gravy boat. "I didn't lie. Darling, you are renting. And I worry about you. All this creative development and secret projects. You know how it looks to the family. It looks like I'm a failure, and that's precisely what you wanted them to see." "You don't understand," she murmured, avoiding my gaze. "There are things. Complicated things. Just focus on your deal." "I've done my part." "Done her part?" The words hung in the air. My mother, the instigator of my public shame, seemed to be viewing her actions as some sort of necessary evil. I left the kitchen, my resolve hardening. That night, back in my covert rental, I barely slept. I was hours away from the largest real estate flip this side of the county had seen. The next morning, Black Friday, my phone rang. It was Uncle David. "Sweetie," he said, dripping with condescending empathy. "I heard what your mother said. Tough crowd, the family. I wanted to tell you not to worry. I'm willing to offer you a junior administrative role at my corporate office. Something you can finally put on a resume that makes sense. I was about to firmly decline when he casually added, and don't worry about Mom. She was the one who was insistent I hire you right away. She called me before Thanksgiving to make sure I would be there and that I knew you were struggling. She wants you settled, honey. She called him? Before Thanksgiving? She hadn't called him to get me a job. She was setting the stage for a strategic diversion. I needed to know what she really wanted. Uncle David, I said, my voice now urgent and strategic. I appreciate the offer, but I'm finalizing my zoning permits right now. I don't have time for a new job, but thank you for showing up. It was critical that you were there. I hung up. I raced back to my mother's house. I found Uncle David in the living room. Uncle David, I need to talk to you about the zoning permit for the property at 1020 Grant Avenue. He physically recoiled. Grant Avenue? That's right across the street from my new development. You're the one who bought that old warehouse. I am, I confirmed. And the only thing standing between me and breaking ground is the final sign minus off on the zoning variance. That variance requires approval from the City Planning Commission's Commercial Review Board. He was the chairman of that board. He was the man who held the absolute power to tank my $5.20 million investment. You know. He breathed. You know I could tank the deal if I felt threatened. And you would have, I said calmly. If I had walked in here yesterday and announced my multi-million-dollar acquisition, you would have found a reason to reject the variance and clear the competition right across the street from your project. But instead, Mom told you I was still renting. She put me in the pity box. She created a narrative so pitiful and non-threatening that you never for a moment considered I was your competition. She guaranteed my success. I stood up. The final documents are ready. I need that signature on the zoning permit today, Uncle David. Not for a pity job, but to authorize my company's immediate groundbreaking on 1020 Grant Avenue. Uncle David stared at me. The contempt was gone, replaced by a sudden electric recognition. He finally saw me not as a scattered niece, but as a ruthless, brilliant competitor. He slowly raised his hand and clapped once, sharply. Well played, he said. A genuine, if grudging, smile spreading across his face. The girl who was still renting just outmaneuvered the entire family. You are a shark. He signed the permit with a flourish. I'll sign the permit, not because you're a family, but because I respect a good play. And frankly, this diversion your mother is a genius. He then raised a crystal glass to my niece, the one who had the foresight to keep the most important secret hidden under the most humiliating lie, to the future owner of 1020 Grant Avenue. The next day, Aunt Carol cornered me near the leftovers. Did you take Uncle David's offer seriously? I did take his offer seriously, I replied, but I can't take the job. I'm afraid I have a rather large, unavoidable conflict of interest. I explained that my new acquisition would place me in direct competition with Uncle David. My mother was being protective, I finished. She knew that if I came in here bragging about a multi-million-dollar deal, you and David would try to block the necessary permits, so she established a distraction. The still renting line was brilliant, wasn't it? Cousin Mark, the app mogul, was next. I could introduce you to some venture capital guys, the real disruptors. They love comeback stories, and yours is definitely a story. I'm not looking for a comeback story. I'm writing a rewrite, I said, showing him the map of my new building right next to his new headquarters site. You're not competing with the renter, Mark. You're competing with a developer who just strategically eliminated your primary regulatory hurdle and is now positioned to undercut your rental rates. The shame I had felt 24 hours earlier was now a potent weapon. I had weaponized their judgment and used their contempt as a smokescreen. Later that evening, I found my mother sitting quietly. I know why you did it, Mom, I said softly. I didn't want them to ruin it for you, your father. They crushed him. I had to give them something else to talk about. I had to let them think I was the bad guy, rather than let them see you as a target. Her voice was thick with emotion. It was a terrible lie, I said. It was the truth, strategically deployed, she countered. I had to protect my child. It was a silent, profound moment of understanding. The love wasn't sweet, it was complicated, messy, and fiercely protective. It was love heart rewritten. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out the closing documents, and laid them on the coffee table. I didn't just buy a commercial building, Mom, I said, pointing to the smaller document. The property at 1020 Grant Avenue is a complex of 4 properties. The main building is the warehouse. But there's also a beautiful old Victorian carriage house on the rear lot. I slid the deed across the table. The carriage house is completely debt-minus free. It's yours, Mom. It's my gift to you. You can move in next month. The woman who publicly declared her daughter was still renting looked down at the deed, and for the first time in my life, I saw her speechless. Because I said, my voice finally breaking. We're not renting anymore, Mom. None of us are. We earned this. The woman who was still renting now owns the property her mother lives in. And my channel, Love Heart Rewritten, is going to be about exactly this. How we redefine those painful family narratives and turn them into power. I pull out the deed to the carriage house, the name protagonist's name clearly visible as the grantor, and my mother's name as the grantee. I hold it up to the camera. So, what's the narrative you're letting your family define for you? Are you the scattered one? The still renting one, or the one secretly executing a multi-million-dollar plan? Sometimes the most embarrassing truth is the best defense, because what they think is your failure might just be your biggest asset.